Ensign James Hunt is Hesketh's driver. James has learned to handle that heady mix of high octane and alcohol which seems to fuel Alexander's happy band.
We thought he was walking away from the car, but of course he was walking away from Formula One.
You're putting on a spectacular floor. I mean, 500,000 people turned up today, and so many more million people are going to be watching it. And all these spectaculars cost a great deal of money. It's an expensive business to be in, but the rewards are high. And if it costs £200,000 or £300,000 a year to become world champion, then that's what it costs. Otherwise, don't come into Formula One. It's as simple as that.
But who is paying? You know, the prize money and things like that can't cover the cost. So you've got to have sponsorship.
We spend every penny that we get from the race organisers and from prize money and from sponsors and so on. And I think the more you spend, obviously, the more chance you have of discovering new ideas and building better cars and winning more races.
Lord Hesketh, just turned 24, is out to win motor racing's World Championship with the only privately sponsored team in the business. Like some 18th century patron, the noble young lord is backing his amateur's fancy and his fortune against the world, against the best competition the commercial sponsors can offer.
I've always had a dream to win a Grand Prix with my chassis, my engine, an English driver and an English team. We are a camp of misfits, but I do believe that individuals who are misfits can be, in a way, more talented even than the most dedicated professional.
It's really everybody's car. When we win for ourselves. We don't win for a major sort of manufacturing company that has its name written all over the car. It's our team.
I may be guilty of being an old-fashioned patriot. The car runs in red, white and blue. It's got Union Jacks plastered on it from top to toe, because I think that if we can go out next year and beat the best, with the best foreign drivers, I think we'll prove something for England.
Well, of course, Alexander, has a different lifestyle and is in a different position in running his team to other people's teams that are run on strictly business lines because they're sponsored by big companies and everybody has a specific job to do with marketing and all that sort of thing, responsibilities.
I noticed the other day that when the sort of house party was arriving for Silverstone, you left and you went off to Scotland or something. Now, why was that?
Well, that was my doing. My annual race at home, so to speak, there's always a certain amount of disagreement, and it's my one weekend where I evict the family from the house for the annual festival, so to speak, at Silverstone.
On the eve of the Silverstone race, Alexander and his aristocratic friends behave rather as one might expect. Alexander knows that he must win this race, so close to home, if Hesketh racing is ever going to be taken seriously.
We're quite a notorious team now. I mean, a lot of people have heard of us probably because we're different. but we haven't really arrived until we've won a race. When we've won a race, then we can stand up and be counted.
Misty morning, clouds in the sky.
40 laps, 117 miles to go. The race begins.
Twinkling bell, never talking, just keeps walking.
And Hunt going through. James Hunt takes the lead at Woodcote in an absolutely superb manoeuvre.
Overcome with emotion. I don't know what to say. It was unbelievable. And I couldn't, I wanted to win here more than any other racetrack in the world, and we've done it at home.
He wanted to win here more than anywhere else in the world, and it's happened, and he's quite overcome with emotion, and it isn't champagne yet, but it's going to be, by God, it's going to be.
Now then, where is that fellow Hunt?
Oh my God, James.
This race proved to be a tactical triumph for the whole team. It had begun in rain, and Hunt was the first to change to dry tyres. After 12 laps, the Hesketh was in the lead, and for the rest of the race, Hunt fought a gripping duel with Lauda's Ferrari, holding on for the most exciting victory of the season. Hunt was the first Englishman to win a Grand Prix since 1971. The Hesketh team had claimed their first championship victory. It was a proud and patriotic moment.
This week, Superstars has moved into Holland with a world champion and a triple Olympic gold medalist among the 8 international sportsmen. What a good race for second place, and Fittipaldi just beating James Hunt.
I feel absolutely knackered, I tell you.
The legs are getting hard now.
What do you mean? Mine are actually collapsed.
Tell you, it's much easier with Formula 1 car underneath.
Yeah, it is. It's easier on the legs.
450 horsepower help a lot, always.
James Hunt had his turn at the front. In a topsy-turvy race, there were no fewer than 6 different leaders. But the Hesketh was struggling. The exhaust system began to fall apart, and Hunt surrendered his lead to Emerson Fittipaldi. There was nothing Lord Hesketh and his team could do. On lap 56, the rains returned, and once again Silverstone was the scene of a mass collision, as driver after driver aquaplaned.
A multi-car accident, and James Hunt is spun and crashed into the other car. He's crashed into the car number 19, who of course is Morgan. There's a few, Jody's in there. Jody's walking out of it, Morgan's out of it, everybody's out of it. The BRSCC Marshall's there, and there's another car, Wilson Fittipaldi.
In all, 9 drivers escaped to pile up virtually unscathed. The red flag came out, and after hours of argument and confusion, Emerson Fittipaldi, the leader on the track, was declared the winner.
Earlier today, James, you announced that you were going to be driving for McLaren next season.
That's right, yeah.
Now, what's going to happen? What's the new team? I mean, Emerson Fittipaldi has moved. You've moved into that #1 seat. This must be a tremendous opportunity for you.
Well, it's fantastic. I mean, basically, I've just got to thank Emerson for being so kind. I think he heard I was out of work, and so decided he'd step down to quiet pastures in Brazil.
No. Now, you're out of work, James, because you've been with Alexander Hesketh for those years, your apprenticeship in Formula One motor racing. You're now in a position where the World Championship can really mean something to you. But the Hesketh years must have been very valuable years.
Well, I mean, the Hesketh team started me really in motor racing in the career of professional racing. They picked me up in Formula 3 when I was almost unemployable from accidents and everything else that I've been doing. They stuck me in a car and told me not to have any accidents with it. I disobeyed that to start off with, and then off we went, and I managed to... Excuse me, I've been training for my new sponsors.
You could argue, couldn't you, Tom Clark, that sport depends on people getting lung cancer, couldn't you? It's so dependent on cigarette sponsorship.
Sport, by and large, in this country is not blessed with enormous financial resources. And I think if there is money available from the cigarette companies, as long as we don't have the likes of leading athletes forced to advertise the brands because their sport is accepting money from cigarette companies, I think it's an honourable arrangement.
Honourable?
Honourable, not amoral at all.
The cigarette advertisers' new code comes at a time of increasing official pressure on the tobacco industry.
We've been in the sponsorship game for a very long time, and we do a lot of research. We don't simply spend all that money and not know what we get from it. We do a lot of research, and that tells us two things: that the vast majority of the public are aware of what we're doing, and two, that they approve of what we're doing.
Sometimes people say that if sponsorship were to pull out of sport, the sport would collapse, generally. How far is that true in your experience?
Well, I think it would be true certainly for one sport. I think Formula One Grand Prix motor racing would be very hard put to continue. The sums of money required are enormous.
Whatever the new code may promise, it hasn't entirely pacified the critics. The anti-smoking campaign, ASH, call it grossly inadequate. And they point out that it will not cover things like sports sponsorship, coupon schemes, cigar advertising, and what it calls indirect forms of cigarette promotion.
One day we might just see international motor racing and the smooth international jet set coming to Birmingham. Chillier than Monte Carlo it may well be, but there's no reason why the Brum Grand Prix shouldn't be just as exciting.
Terrible. It was terrible.
It reaches quite unacceptable levels, illegal in some cases.
I was about 1.5 miles away, and I could hear it.
If the City Council were to go ahead with the race, they'd choose a bigger circuit. But even this Sunday trial circuit had been good fun for Patrick Neve. Would you like to see a Grand Prix in Birmingham?
Yeah, of course. I think it will be very, really fantastic for English racing, I will say, because first it will be in the city, is going to be terribly good, you know, on a commercial point of view for motor racing in general for England. You have the same sort of thing in France, Monaco, and now we're going to have the first Grand Prix this year at Long Beach in California, which is exactly the same, you know, than here.
Birmingham's a bit different from Long Beach or Monaco, though.
Yeah, okay, because the weather, you know, but then...
In front. Watson might push Andretti out. You see Nicky Lauda's way back and flying from John Watson. And it's James Hunt who takes the lead in the Japanese Grand Prix.
Suddenly it's changed. Wish that I could find a way to stop the rain. Stop the rain. Wish that I could stop the rain.
Nicky Lauda talks to Daniele Ordetto, the Ferrari team manager, and says the conditions out there are too bad, I've had enough. And Hunt is in the pits in second place, and if he drops below fourth, if he goes out, his World Championship is going to be in danger. And James Hunt gets away. Now he is in fifth position and out of the contention. And James Hunt is passing Jones. Hunt is fourth, and Regazzoni is out of the race. So now Hunt moves up to third position. And Mario Andretti coming up to take the checkered flag and win the 1976 Japanese Grand Prix, and he does it.
Stop the rain. Oh, yeah. Who do you think you are?
James, how do you manage to have any private life at all? Here you are, I'm interviewing you, you've only just come back from racing in a Grand Prix. Wherever you go, there are photographers. Every time you take a girl out, there are photographers. Do you have any private life at all?
Well, I get a bit of a private life when I get home. It's one of the great advantages of living where I do in Spain.
Well, that's not true. I've seen photographs of you alongside your pool in Spain, and photographers and girls and so on.
Yes, but people come there by appointment. By appointment, and but at the moment, as I say, I'm opening a lot of doors with the money that I make, and also, you know, the success that I have in my own field makes other doors easier to walk through. I don't intend to make a career of being a name after that. Some people do that. I don't like that. I find that is a prostitution of one's personality.
I think that we have had a fairly low level of success. It's accentuated in a way by the fact that we didn't have sponsorship and we ran as an unsponsored red, white and blue car up until the end of '75.
Why did they not, the large companies, want to come and put money into your team? After all, you had James Hunt, you had a reasonably successful car. Why didn't they want to give you the money?
I think there are two very simple reasons. The team was financed by my business, and like many businesses experienced during 1974 and 75, a dramatic drop in profits. The result was, it was very late on when one realized that we were going to have to, if we were going to race in '76, be sponsored. Secondly, many sponsors said, well, you're too much of an individualist team. And that's true to an extent, except, of course, every sponsor wants individuals because that's news and that's what sponsorship must be about. So it's a slight contradiction.
Maybe they didn't like your image or something.
That's quite possible, but I don't think that our image was any worse than many other people's. In fact, I think that we were, in a way, on a par with anyone else.
How much did the whole operation cost you in terms of what you put into it?
Well, I put about £500,000 into it. I don't consider that a loss because here today is a thriving business and Hesketh Racing has to make money now and has done for the last 2 years.
But 3 weeks ago, Alexander Hesketh ran out of money again and was rescued by a Japanese camera company.
but only on condition that he used the driver they wanted. In this case, a woman, Davina Galica, who, even though she was better known as a champion skier, was able to provide publicity and value for money.
Brian Hinton, British Formula 1 Racing. I'd like to place an ad, please, in the Situents vacant column. British Formula 1 Racing Team Limited require chief mechanic in big type, must have experience in F1, F2 or F5000, excellent salary and long-term prospects. Contact Brian Hinton, Derby. How much will that be? No, that's too much.
I started in the early days in minor Formula and won several championships, and then graduated to Formula 3 and finally Formula 2 and into the occasional driving Formula 1. I'm now doing the thing that I always wanted to do, which was actually control my own destiny in my own team. If I didn't think I could be world champion, I wouldn't be doing it. But so do the other 25 drivers. But I want to do it my way.
This is the sound of the Sabbaths. This is the sound of the Sabbaths. Every lazy Monday morning.
Sounded a bit sick coming down the straight here, didn't it? Yeah. It was only pulling 10.2, it was pulling 10.6 before. Yeah. It's not worth going around and blowing it now, for the sake, you know. Yeah, for the sake of trying to qualify. Yesterday is probably one of the lowest lows that I've had in motor racing, and we've really made a pig's ear of it, there's no doubt about it. Well, we can't get any worse, and there's no way I'm giving in now. We've really, you know, we've got to get stuck in, we've got to go back, think about the whole thing, and somehow we've got to get some more money into it, and we're going to carry on. There's no way I'm giving up, you know, even if in the end I'm really down and out, I'm going to win.
Last year he won several Grand Prix, including the British, but this year he's failed to win a race. Today, he's surprisingly dispirited about his prospects, even uncertain about his future in motor racing. He regards the rival Lotus team as so good that he dismisses his own chances.
You can always win if they break down. You know, there's only two of them, so you know, everybody has a chance from that point of view. But as far as beating them for speed's concerned, that's really not, it's not a question of unlikely, it's not possible.
In the summer of 1975, we didn't have the finance to do what we'd like to do, but we've managed to adapt to that, and in conjunction with our sponsors, we set up a special research and development program, and I think we're getting somewhere now.
burst of flame. Peterson's Lotus 78 that's in flames, and there is Peterson. He's being pulled out by James Hunt. He was trapped, and James Hunt, and I can see Regazzoni down there, I can see Daly down there, and meantime the Italian firefighters getting on top of those flames.
I think it's It's difficult to actually say, and obviously people have looked and examined films and everything else, and it's very hard to say whose fault that accident was. You look at it and you can blame or make a reason for almost anything with all the people who were in that vicinity. So it's difficult to say. No, I wouldn't want to blame anybody for Ronnie's death.
There have been stories this year that you've been unhappy with your motor racing. Have you ever given any thought to leaving?
What, you mean to retiring?
Right.
Well, certainly I have, yeah. I mean, I've been racing for quite a while now, and it's a very dangerous business, so anybody who doesn't give that some thoughts, pretty stupid.
I could see him in my mind getting out of the car, that sort of hunched, rounded shoulder stance of his, and just literally walking away. And we thought he was walking away from the car, but of course he was walking away from Formula One.
Well, we never wanted any power or any taste of power, and I don't think anything needs to change. With nothing to worry about.
And you can find out how the BBC archive was used to show the excitement and glamour of Formula One's early days on the BBC TV blog.